केरल से लेकर बिग बाजार तक हर जगह मैगी बैन।
मैगी में तय मात्रा से ज्यादा एमएसजी और लेड मिलने की वजह से राज्यों ने मैगी की बिक्री पर रोक लगानी शुरू कर दी।
Maggi noodles nationwide. Nestle has been ordered to recall all products immediately after samples failed lead tests.
There are leaders who build companies in good times. And then there are leaders who are tested when everything starts falling apart. Suresh Narayanan has seen both. From navigating the global financial crisis and the Arab Spring, to taking charge of Nestle India during the Maggi crisis. His career has been shaped by some of the toughest situations a business leader can face. But this conversation is not just about Maggi or Nestle. It is about what every founder should understand before building an FMCG company. Quality systems, consumer trust, innovation, leadership, food safety, and what to do when a crisis arrives without warning. After more than 4 decades in business, Suresh Narayanan joins us to share the lessons that only experience can teach. This is What Next.
What was it like when you were transferred for the Maggi crisis? What was going through in your mind?
Look, I think the first thought was, why me?
Yeah.
Right? Because there are 300,000 employees in the company. Why is it that you have been selected for that most difficult job? It was a full-blown crisis, and it was consuming the company. And if it were not well handled, it could have meant the end of the company as well.
Do you feel was there any political agenda behind this controversy?
It was very difficult to say anything on political agenda or any of these things. It was clearly a regulatory misunderstanding as we see it. And that is what we resolved ultimately, because the whole testing mechanism was flawed.
Or should it also ask, even if this is allowed, is this the best product we can possibly make?
That's what it did. It came up with a product that's even better.
I mean, why it took 3 years to just remove the sugar from the product?
It's not so easy, because nutrition is balancing. And then you have to produce a product that still stands the test of taste with the consumer. So the child should not spit it out the minute it's put into the mouth.
So, first of all, thank you for being here. Before we talk about your journey, I want to start with something very basic. If I ask you to introduce who is Suresh Narayanan without mentioning your designation, how would you describe yourself?
Well, thank you, Saurabh, for having me on your podcast. And yes, I can describe myself, in fact, better without the designation than with the designation. I am Suresh Narayanan. I am a conscientious human being. I believe a lot in the power of people, and I believe in the virtue of hard work, of respect, of dignity, and of humility in everything that I do and that I have the ambition to do. That will be my description.
You have spent so many years building and leading some of the most familiar brands of India in India, and you have also seen probably one of the biggest FMCG crisis in the country with Maggi. While preparing for our conversation, I was reading about your book, recently launched book, Courage Under Fire, and what struck me was that so much of your leadership journey has been shaped by difficult periods. The Arab Spring, Maggi crisis, then Cerelac crisis, then COVID. So I thought maybe the best way to start this conversation is through those moments rather than just going through your career. So maybe we can start with Maggi. I think that period explains a lot about the way you think today. Am I right?
Sure. No, it is. There is a past to it and there is a present to it as well. And I think it's been the cumulative impact of learnings and practices that I have picked up from different crises. And there are some people, Saurabh, whose career is highlighted by the number of crises that they have managed. And some other people have a relatively peaceful time in their careers, defined by few crises. In my book, you would have read, started my brush with crisis early in my career, when I had to close down a factory in Ahmedabad and shifted to Baroda, to Halol in Baroda. And the kind of trauma that I went through and the manner in which I and my team managed to resolve it amicably. And then on to the Lehman Brothers crisis in Singapore, when I was posted there as the head of the company of Nestle. And thereafter then in the Arab Spring, which began peacefully, but then which very quickly morphed within months into the Arab Spring. And that was 5 exciting years of trying to thrive in a storm and try and make the best out of these circumstances, both in terms of people, consumers, investments, and returns for the company.
Let's talk about Baroda. I mean, you were quite young. You were 22, I think, when you shut down that factory, right?
Yes, I was very young.
How did you do it? Even I can't imagine someone going through a lot.
Saurabh, circumstance is the best teacher. And when you are put into a difficult spot, you can't count your age and qualifications. You have to only count your blessings and your capabilities. And I think that is the approach that I took. I had people around me to help me to navigate the storm, but that is where my leadership style really was formed, to have a people-centered approach and to do everything right for the people was what I learned out of that crisis. And yes, it was of the 80s of the Naroda Industrial Estate, so it was a period of high level of industrial unrest, and in that difficult circumstance to close a factory with 35 odd workers and move it to a different location was certainly a challenge. But I think if you use the principles of transparency, of honesty, of trust, and of appropriate communication, and building that communication into trust, you are able to navigate even the most difficult storm. And that is what I learned out of that experience, which is what I try to use in subsequent experiences as well. So the core of my philosophy is a people-centered approach that you are able to achieve only as much as your people will allow you to achieve. I think those leaders who are egotistical, who think that they are the ones who rule the world and they are the ones who make it move, are mistaken, because the energy and the commitment and the hard work and the imagination and the drive of their people is what gets them to achieve whatever they achieve. And taking care of them, being fair with them, being transparent with them, being clear with them on the goals, on the ambitions, is an important part of leadership. And also, when time demands to be tough with people, is also the task of leadership. So leadership is not all sugar and nice things in life. There is also some bitterness that sometimes comes, which the leader should be capable of standing up to and communicating.
But this thought process has come along with so many crises you have seen in the last 20, 25 years, 30 years, right? How was it when you were 22 and you took some major decisions? What was going through in your mind?
Look, I was the two things. One is the anxiety to complete it successfully and peacefully. And the second one was the torment in my mind that why are we so harsh with people? Because I was still young, I never realized the importance of commercial viability of commercial enterprises. So I said, what harm would it do for a large company to have one unit, which is not necessarily the most profitable, but where there are people who are working and people who have been working for a long time, and how much of this is attributed to leadership rather than to the people, and that difficulty and that dilemma lived with me during that crisis. And therefore, I went out of my way to ensure that whatever deal we gave the workers was the best deal possible. Whatever settlement we had with them was the best that was possible under the circumstance. So much so that the workers actually decided to give me a farewell instead of the other way around. And that really touched me, because you realize in life, Saurabh, that if you are fair, transparent, and humble, you can achieve a hell of a lot as compared to being devious and arrogant and difficult.
But sometimes it is hard to take those decisions, right?
Yes, it is hard to take those decisions, and that is where, Saurabh, it's important that you live within your conscience. You live within your purpose and values as a human being. You do things, and you also know in life what are the things you can control and what are the things you cannot control.
You can't control, yeah.
So this was a decision that was beyond my control. I was too small and too. I was in a starting position in the organization. So I had less influence on the decision, but I had greater scope in terms of executing that decision, which is what I tried to do.
So after Baroda, then you went to Singapore.
No. I had a career that took me to Calcutta. I've had other stints as well. I've only recounted the moments of crisis in my book. But I have gone through assignments within Hindustan Lever, in product management, in exports, in regional management, and then as head of sales for the tea and coffee business of the company. So I've had a track record of different positions. After all, I'm trying to encapsulate 44 years of working experience, and the crisis period has been roughly about a third of it, about
Yeah.
of my career. The rest of it has been.
Interesting thing is, looking at your journey, it feels that crises were following you everywhere.
Well, I had this unique ability, sort of either creating a crisis or falling into a crisis. So that's मेरी किस्मत ऐसी है, that either I'm in a crisis or when a crisis is being created, I'm there. But I have no regrets about it. Saurabh, it has made me a stronger person. It's made me a stronger individual. It's made me a more resilient person. Because adversity is the best teacher in life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Good times won't teach you very much, except continuity. Bad times will teach you how to get to good times, and I think that's a big task for any leader to do.
It's a cycle. You have said that you came into the Maggi crisis and you didn't really have the answers. You only had questions. So what was it like when you were transferred for the Maggi crisis? What was going through in your mind?
Look, I think the first thought was, why me? Right? Because
Right.
there are 300,000 employees in the company. Why is it that you have been selected for that
Yeah.
most difficult job? It was a full-blown crisis, and it was consuming the company. And if it were not well handled, it could have meant the end of the company as well. So why in that kind of situation are you selected? But then you realize, and in fact, this my father told me that. He said, look, in a crisis, the company would always send the person whom it feels is the most qualified and the most competent for the job. They won't send just anybody because nobody wants
Of
to
course.
make the situation worse.
Yeah.
So, and I owed a lot to this team because as I grew my career in Nestle, the India team was the pivot for my career enhancement and whatever elevations I had. So I felt that it was time for me to pay back to this team in difficult times. And since I had a credibility with the team, I was a little bit less intimidated by the crisis because I knew that the people would be on my side and I have to get them to understand what we need to do rather than trying to build an equation of trust with each one of them. It was advantageous for me since I already had an equation with them.
I saw one of your interview where you said that you didn't really have the answers. You only had a few questions. What were those questions?
What could have caused this crisis? Uh, what? How do we approach the key stakeholders in the crisis, which is the consumer, the regulator, and the environment? What could be the best strategy to come out of this mess and to be able to relaunch the brand, and how quickly can we do it? Number 4 is how do we build back the consumer trust of the brand as and when we are allowed to launch the brand. And number 5 is all the people related issues. There were people who were worried about their jobs, they were worried about their continuity of employment, etc. How do we manage that? And these were the most important questions in my mind. And the last question that I told you became my first response. That is to first address it from the people side before I start looking at the nitty-gritties of the problem. So there were teams working on each of these questions. But I was spending more time with the people to try and assuage them and to try and give them comfort that all will be well and that we will come out of this mess one day. I don't know when, but we will come out of it, and that's the determination that we have. See, leadership is meant to give hope. Leadership
Yeah.
is not meant to give certainty because these are uncertain times. So nobody can give you certainty, but leaders can give you hope. And it is on that hope that people also do the work based on trust.
Apparently, you don't have anything else except hope.
At that point in time, yes,
Yeah.
what you have is a set of actions that you hopefully think will be able to solve the problem. But you can only translate it into certainty once it gets effect and once it takes effect.
बट हाउ डिड इट स्टार्टेड सर? मतलब एकदम से तो इतना बड़ा नहीं हुआ होगा, छोटे छोटे कहीं ना कहीं से एक सिग्नल्स तो आना चालू हो गए होंगे ना ब्रांड्स को.
It started in Barabanki with a test that was done by a food inspector, and that said that the use of the term no added MSG is illegal. It was the recommendation of FSSAI that those products that do not have MSG in it should put their no added MSG. So that was basically trying to point a finger at their own regulatory notification that they've given. And then the sample normally is sent to second testing after informing the company that there is a problem with your product. It went to Calcutta, and there it got analyzed, and there it said that it contains 17 times the lead that is prescribed under food laws. And this finding, instead of being communicated to the company, got communicated to the media. And that's how the controversy started. Yes, I think in hindsight, maybe if we had been a little bit more vigilant on the ground, we might have been able to pick it up before. But this is how it started, and then it became a full-blown storm.
Do you feel was there any political agenda behind this controversy?
No, it's very difficult to say anything on a political agenda or any of those things. It was clearly a regulatory misunderstanding as we see it. And that is what we resolved ultimately, because the whole testing mechanism was flawed. And therefore the test results were suspect. When it was done properly in a NABL accredited laboratory, all the tests came positive. And there was no problem found with the product, and that's how we relaunched.
So, and what was your strategy relaunching it, while relaunching the product?
The relaunch strategy was based on continuity of the same product. We strongly believed that there was nothing wrong with Maggi, and there was no need to change anything in Maggi. The consumer loved it the way it is, and the consumer told us so in so many words that they loved it the way it is. So we put it back into the marketplace just the way it is on Dhanteras Day in 2015, and the rest is history. That within 3 months it came back to leadership.
As you said right now, the product was safe, but I remember outside the consumer was hearing something completely different. So in a situation like that, whose reality mattered most?
No, the reality is always for a consumer product with the consumer, and the consumer loved the product. The consumer had no hatred for the product.
Yeah.
The consumer wanted the company to clarify and come back. So there was nothing suspicious with the consumer. That's the reason why we were able to revive a brand that was technically dead and put it back to leadership within 3 months. That's because of the consumer love, nothing else.
And I remember there was one commercial you put it out that time when Maggi got banned. Maggi, we love you, right?
We miss you too.
We miss you too. Yeah.
That we miss Maggi because we didn't have it on the shelf.
What was the intention behind this commercial?
This commercial was basically to reinforce the relationship that the company and Maggi had with the consumer. That just as you are missing us, we are missing you too, right? So it's a play on the emotional connect that a consumer has with the brand.
Do you feel that emotional connect works really well in a country like India?
Well, I think it depends on the circumstance and it depends on the situation. But brands are more than brands; they are experiences.
Experiences.
For Maggi, the question has always been, it is the experience of Maggi. It's more than a noodle. It's part of a lifestyle. It's part of a life journey. It's part of a moment, part of your emotions itself. And therefore, it is more than just a brand. And at that moment, we realized that what we are talking about is more than just a brand. It's not just a product to fill your stomach. It's more than that. There are other emotional feelings that are attached to it. And that is what we were privileged to have as Maggi. And that's what we looked at in relaunching it.
I mean, Maggi is the most loved product in India from my school days till today. So, अभी तक कोई भी दूसरा ब्रांड मैगी जैसा प्रोडक्ट क्यों नहीं ला पाया है? Why it is Maggi? Why no other? Of course, there are a lot of brands who have launched a similar product.
Has established such a position with the consumer that the combination of the taste, the experience, and the sustainability of that over a period of time has made it a powerful brand. And also the relevance with the consumer. Remember the brand was launched in 1983. So it is a 43-year-old brand.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it has managed to change with the generations. be innovative, be first of the block in terms of new innovations, new directions, new communications. And this is what has helped the brand to become the way it has become.
Something I found fascinating was that you said 4 years. You said your years in Egypt, Libya, and Sudan during the Arab Spring helped you later during Maggi. So on the surface, those situations look completely unrelatable, right? What did you learn that suddenly became useful when you came back into the Maggi crisis?
Look, I think one was the reinforcement of the people-centered approach, because that's what I did during the Arab Spring. Focused on the people and the people's desires and intentions to grow and to prosper in a difficult circumstance. I think that was number one. Number two was the power of communication and the clarity, simplicity of communication that was important. Number three was involving all stakeholders in the game of trying to run a company then, and of course to resurrect a brand here. Number four, the focus on building trust, building transparency and clarity of communication in whatever was being said to the people. And finally, of a purpose and value-centered leadership that ensured that people felt comfortable even in the most uncomfortable moments. And that's what is the task of the leader, that people feel comfortable in the most uncomfortable moments to be able to do the job and to be able to do the things that they are meant to do. It's exactly those principles that I adopted in the case of the Maggi crisis as well.
So, looking back now, are there usually any small warning sign before a crisis becomes big?
Yes, there can be warning signs. I mean, like for example, tests and failure of products in the marketplace. That could be a sign. Could be some activism on social media. Some complaints blip that you can see going up during a particular period. Pieces of communication in the media that is disparaging of the brand. All these are signs that something is going amiss.
So, suppose I'm running a 100 crore food company. What records, testing, quality systems, or checks should already exist so that if somebody questions my product, I'm not trying to build my defense after the crisis has already started?
No, look, that's a topic in itself, Saurabh, and
Okay.
I'm afraid we won't have time for looking at test methodologies. But I think it's fair to say that what ingredients are you procuring, what quality standards are you maintaining, how strong is your conversion process into manufacturing, what are the in-manufacturing tests that are being done, what is the finished product standards that you're following, what is the logistics that you're operating with, and what is the testing that you do at the warehouses, and what is the testing that you do before the product is with the consumer, and what is the follow-up mechanism in case there is a complaint on a product. How do you follow it up in terms of the loop on assuaging it and of testing it and of responding to it. I think these are all the quality checks that the company goes through. But the company above all has to have a philosophy where product quality and safety is central to whatever the company does. And that is what is the culture of the company. That's where a company like Nestle scores over, because it is able to focus on the quality and safety aspects very strongly.
Because most of the time, smaller company may not have that kind of money what Nestle had, or time
more than money and time, it is also the culture. I mean, you have to agree that you will unfailingly give without compromise the consumer the best product on each and every occasion. That is a question of commitment not only to equipment, but a commitment to standards, culture, and quality.
But that's very subjective, sir.
There's no subjective about it. It's a very objective process. Each of those testing mechanisms has got a logic, a scientific logic to it, and a human logic to it. So you don't build an organization by just focusing on the technical competence of the people. You also focus it on their own ability and their own resonance as far as making it happen every single day is concerned.
So, what can a small founder realistically learn from a Maggi crisis? Someone who is running a company, let's say 10 crore company or 50 crore sales company.
It is to learn three things. Number one is to never assume that success is guaranteed. Number two is to ensure that quality and safety is never compromised. And number three is if number one and number two are followed, then you will never have even if you have a problem with the environment, you will be able to address it smoothly and transparently. And that I think is an important lesson.
And how was Cerelac crisis different from Maggi? I mean, what did you do differently during the Cerelac criticism because of what Maggi had already taught you?
Look, I think it's always the belief that any piece of communication has to be transparent and has to be factually clear. The Cerelac story was that on sugar content of our products and saying that there were products available without added sugar in other parts of the world exclusively and not in India. I think the stand is very clear. The facts are very clear that the sugar standards that are used in a country are basis the local availability of ingredients, the local recipes, and also the local laws of the land. And the product was completely compliant and well within the standards set by the FSSAI, which is a governing body for food regulation in this country. So that was transparently put out to the media. And also at the same time, we were working on a product with even lower levels of sugar, which is what was introduced at that point in time. And that also got off to a good start. So one project was always, nutrition is a constant battle between taste and the quality of the nutrition. So as you keep improving the quality of the nutrition, you have to ensure that the taste doesn't get compromised. And that takes time. It doesn't happen automatically.
Overnight. Yeah.
That is what was done in the case of Cerelac.
But do you really believe that should a company like Nestle only ask, are we within the regulation, or should it also ask, even if this is allowed, is this the best product we can possibly make?
That's what it did. It came up with a product that's even better. So it was not that, but the laws of the land have to be followed. I have to be within the standards set by the regulator. And I was well below. I was at something like 35-40%, if I'm not mistaken, of the standard that was set by the regulator on sugar. So well within the standards. And then we reduced it even further.
When I was doing research, I read somewhere that it was a multi-year project to remove sugar from the Cerelac packaging. I mean, why it took 3 years to just remove the sugar from the product? Okay.
It's not so easy because nutrition is balancing. You have to balance protein, fat, sugar, carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins, and everything. You remove one, you have to add something of the other. And then you have to produce a product that still stands the test of taste with the consumer. So the child should not spit it out the minute it's put
Yeah.
into the mouth. So it's very easy to just say that is the power of food science. That is the power of food
Yeah.
science, and that's the power of food technology. That you can do it, but you have to do it in stages. You can't do it in one shot.
I'm sure you did a lot of research. You have tried a lot of other things before coming to a certain point. कि हाँ ठीक है, this is the product now. You must have done more research, right?
Of course, we do research, and then we improve the product, and then we further do research, and we further improve the product. That's how the cycle moves.
The interesting part is 10 years ago, companies were largely accountable to regulators and journalists. But now, in last 3 or 4 years, things have drastically changed. Today, one person can turn a packet around and show the ingredient list to millions of people and create a conversation overnight. So, has that permanently changed the relationship between the company and the consumer?
No, not really. In fact,
Okay.
it's a move in the positive direction because as companies and the well-meaning companies, as they start to improve the quality of the nutrition, it becomes easier to convince the consumer because the consumer is already aware that looking at the label or reading the label is an important aspect of buying a brand. So it's only the people who have something to hide that will find this painful. Most others will find it quite useful.
I want to know it from you. You have spent decades studying Indian consumer. So let me move away from crisis for a bit. After all these years in FMCG, what do you still find difficult to understand about the Indian consumer?
There's nothing difficult to understand about the Indian consumer. The Indian consumer seeks value, seeks quality, seeks safety, seeks sustainability and continuity over a period of time. I think it's
Pricing?
up to it's important that companies are able to live within those parameters, and the more acute the insights get developed, the better the products will be over a period of time. So there is nothing mysterious about the Indian consumer. They are like consumers anywhere else in the world. Their tastes, their expectations are different, but they are able to articulate it quite well with the sound of market shares as far as brands are concerned.
So do you feel the pricing is the biggest point for Indian consumer?
Not necessarily.
Few days back, I had KitKat. Someone got it for me from Japan, and I have KitKat outside India, and it almost feels like a different brand. You are having a product of a different brand. So many flavors, textures. The experience is totally different from what we have in India. So why don't we see the same kind of variety in India?
Look, the variety will be determined by the by the scale of demand that happens. The product is catered to the local pricing, to the local ingredients, and to the local tastes, and also to the local temperatures for storage. The KitKat that you buy in India is made in a manner so that it is tropicalized. It is able to withstand the temperature conditions in India, which is very different from temperature conditions in Japan. And it also caters itself to the local taste requirements of the Indian consumer. And therefore, you will find a difference. But that doesn't mean that the promise of KitKat changes. The promise of KitKat is relevant to the Indian consumer, as is the promise of KitKat relevant to the Japanese consumer.
And KitKat is the second top selling product of Nestle, right?
There are many products that are bigger than, some products which are bigger than KitKat also.
In India?
Yeah.
In my own business, I have noticed that whenever we develop something new, we get very excited about that particular product because we have spent time, money, and effort while making that product. But it is not necessary, the market does not always care as much as we do, right? Sometimes the product you think will work barely matter moves, and something else unexpectedly becomes the winner. And Nestle has also launched 150 product in last 10 years, but most of the sales come from 7 to 8% product, right?
7 to 8%? No, about 8% products come from new percent of sales comes from new products.
I mean, I'm saying while newer innovation contribute roughly around 7 to 8% of sales, right? How do you look at failure in innovation?
It's an inherent part of the innovation process that not everything that you launch will be successful. And you have to learn to accept that failing to succeed will hopefully help you succeed at a later date. So long as a failure is not the result of very poor consumer insight, very poor manufacturing practices or quality issues, I think failure has to be accepted as part of the learning curve of an organization.
Company like Nestle can launch so many products, can launch 15 products every year, but it is not it is very hard for a smaller company. How can a smaller company do innovation every year?
Well, a smaller company will have to decide what is its source of business going to be. Is it going to be the core products of the company, or is it going to be innovation? If it is innovation, then it has to sharpen its pencil as far as the innovation process is concerned and identify those categories where growth is opportunistic and where they have got a strength, and operate to their strengths and capabilities in manufacturing and in sourcing and in research to be able to come up with innovations. There is no set formula for it. It all depends on what the stomach of the company is to be able to take hits or to take misses from innovation.
But in today's time, if you want to stay relevant and competitive, you need to come up with some innovation, right?
So it has to be relevant to the product portfolio of the company, and it has to be relevant to the consumer of the company. Those are the two most important things that need to be done.
So when the core brand itself is 30 or 40 years old, how do you know it's slowly becoming irrelevant before the sales number starts telling you?
You will not know till the sales numbers start telling you, unless the consumer is giving you feedback that the brand is irrelevant. And that will start reflecting very soon in your share numbers as well.
Sir, I want to know it from you. Nestle is not only competing with the multinational companies today. There are regional brands who are doing exceptionally well. Some of them are doing 100 crore sales in their state. So what worries a large company more today, a multinational competitor or a regional brand?
Both. I think competition is here to stay, and competition is both regional and local and also multinational.
Was it same 5 years back?
5 years back, it was more organized multinational and local players. Now it's become more regional players also.
Why the shift is happening?
Because the regional players are coming up with relevant propositions for consumers and are able to make a dent as far as consumer choice is concerned.
Okay, let's talk about your book now. So, tell us something about your book, Courage Under Fire.
Okay, so it's a book about my leadership perspectives.
Yes.
Gained out of different crises, put forward for the young leaders of tomorrow. So that's what the book is. It captures leadership lessons around purpose, around values, around respect, around communication, around prioritization, around management of the environment, management of the self, and on various themes that become important in leadership.
So was it always in a plan to launch your book after retirement?
Well, I had wanted to leave behind a set of perspectives for young leaders. So it was part of that desire. And retirement is the time when you get a little bit more time to do such things, and that's what I've done.
So what's your schedule now? What do you do whole day?
Oh, I do a lot of things. I do guest lectures. I do a little bit of teaching. I do a little bit of advising, a little bit of board work, some travel. So I keep myself quite busy.
And advising to startup founders or business owners?
It's different. It's to private equity. It is to mentorships, different kinds.
If tomorrow I'm running a 500-person company, what is one kind of problem where you would tell me never delegate this kind of problem?
Well, if it's a crisis of reputation, you don't delegate it to anybody.
And what is one kind of problem where you would say if this is still reaching you, then you have built the organization badly?
One thing that is, I don't understand. One thing that's reaching you.
What is one kind of problem where you would say if this problem is still reaching you, then you have built the organization badly?
Well, if a very small issue in a small part of the organization is come up to you for decision, that means that the level of empowerment is not adequate.
Because why I'm asking this, I am into my family business. Initially, the founder owner checking everything is probably why the business survives. But eventually, the same founder is approving everything, be it payment, hiring, or customer issues. So how can a small company make the shift and start delegating?
Start with you. I mean, you have to start trusting and empowering your people. If you hold every card close to your chest, and then you have to take all the decisions yourself, and then you have to be working 24/7. So identify the right people in your organization who can be empowered, who can be trusted, who can be given the task, and give them the task. Maybe they make a mistake a couple of times, but so long as these are not very expensive mistakes, condone it and give them the confidence.
When you are young, success is quite easy to measure through designation, salary, revenue, growth. After seeing all of those things, what does success mean to you today?
It is not success that means anything to me. It is happiness that means a lot to me.
Okay.
I think success is always relative. You are successful, somebody else is more successful.
Yeah.
But it is happiness that is absolute. That is only you. So as young leaders, seek happiness more than just seeking success. Success will come your way, but happiness will not come your way till you make it happen.
And what happiness is for you?
Happiness is for me a feeling of contentment, a feeling that at the end of the day, whatever I have done it with my conscience, with my purpose, with my values intact, and with my soul intact. That's what is important.
So before we wrap up, is there anything we missed that you were hoping we would talk about?
No, I think you have set the agenda.